Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Look here. Orlando's getting acclimated to being home. He's moved in with his girlfriend at her apartment. Life is good. Life is good. He gets up every morning, he fixes her breakfast, things that they talked about doing when he was locked up. When he wrote her, when he talked to her on the phone, what he was going to do to her, cook her breakfast, have her bath water ready when she got home. All of that stuff, with the rose petals, all of that kind of stuff all on the bed and everything. And life was great. Life was great, And he had one problem, though. Jaylen kept calling. And he would stop by unannounced every now and then. See, Orlando was trying to ignore him, trying to avoid him, because he didn't want to be around that. He didn't want a part of that lifestyle. But Jaylen wasn't having him. This was his childhood friend. This was the person that put him in the game, and he was not going to be denied his company under any circumstances. So he would come by unannounced, knocking all on the door, coming into the house, because Orlando didn't feel as though, it was cool to tell him, man, I don't want you around. He was just hoping that he would get the message that I'm working, you're hustling, we're living two different lives. You go your way, I go mine. It don't work that way, y'all. It don't work that way. See, Orlando put Jaylen in the game. And Jaylen wanted Orlando back in the game. That was that on that. So when Orlando didn't come around him, he went around him. And now he's at the house, and Orlando's girlfriend, she's getting a little upset by him always wanting to come around. Always smelling like weed. Always talking about the women that he's with. All of the things that he's out there doing. The things that don't call for him being responsible or accountable to anybody. He just lives life laissez-faire, doing what he wants to do because he's got the money to do it, and he's got the time to do it because he doesn't work anywhere. All he does is sell drugs all day, all night, shop, play video games, eat out, spend as much time as he wants with many different women all over the city. For him, life was great. He thought, why would you want to do anything else? And that kind of conversation, she didn't want that to be around Orlando. She didn't want that kind of conversation in their house because she felt that it might tempt him and draw him back to that lifestyle. It might make him feel like he's missing out on something. So Orlando started to pick up on her vibe, and he asked her, is everything okay? And she told him no. She said he needs to go. He can't come over here every night. And Orlando told her, he said, I'm just trying to figure out how to tell him. She said, you're just going to have to tell him. Some people don't pick up on hints. You got to be blunt with them. So Orlando decided to, if he comes by again, he's already been by 3 times that week, he was going to tell him, look, not tonight. Spending time with my baby. So Orlando, sure enough, he drops by, knocks on the door. Orlando opens the door. He tells him, he said, hey man, we got plans to spend some time together tonight. We don't have time to entertain tonight. Jaylen's face twisted all up. He said, you choosing her over me? Now see, Orlando had never heard that type of language before out of him. And it threw him off. He really didn't know what to say. And he looked over his shoulder and he saw her standing behind. She's expecting him to say yes. And he looked at Jaylen and he pushes him out the door, and he steps outside the door and pulls the door behind him. He said, man, look, what's wrong with you, man? Why would you ask me something like that? You're my best friend in the world. This is my girl. It's not about choosing her over you. It's about you respecting the boundaries, man. And Jaylen looked at him and said, man, there ain't no boundaries with friends, man. He said, we ain't doing it like that, man. We don't live like that. He said, you started this. Why are you running from this? Orlando looked at him. He said, man, I don't think like that no more. I don't want to do none of that no more. He said, you think you better than me? You think you better than me? Because you don't want the prison? And now you coming up out of prison? You know what I'm saying? All the philosophizing and saying all these fancy words and all this and that. And you think you somebody now? You think these people care about you? You think these people want you to do the right thing because, you know what I'm saying, it helps you? No, it helps them. I'm living my life how I want to. You taught me this. And now you telling me this ain't good enough for you? And if this ain't good enough for you, you saying I'm not good enough for you. Now see, Orlando didn't really know how to respond to that. So he just stared at it. And he told him, he said, man, I ain't got time for this. He said, man, I love you. You're my brother. But don't come around here no more, man, unannounced. We're not doing that no more. He said, I'll see you when I see you. And he turned the knob of the door that was behind his back, pushed the door open and stepped back into the house. And Jaylen stood there staring at him. And while Jaylen was staring at him, his face twisted up and, you know, it's almost like he frowned at him. And he said, it's like that? And Orlando looked at him. He didn't respond, and he just shut the door in his face. Jaylen hit the door. He hit it again. He said, it's like that? You choosing her over me? He said, that's what's up. You gonna need me before I need you. And then Orlando could hear his footsteps going down the steps. And he could hear the car door slamming. And he pulled off. He was looking out the window and he saw Jaylen driving away. And while Jaylen was driving away, he felt this emptiness inside of him. He felt that something major had just taken place in his life. And a sense of sadness washed all over him. He didn't understand what was going on. So without even telling him, his girl, she comes up behind him and she wraps her arms around him and lays her head on his back right between his shoulder blades, and she tells him, she said, baby, you're gonna be all right. One day he'll understand. But life goes on. And she said, I'm proud of you. And he turns around and hugs and kisses her, and he tells her that that was hard. He said, I don't know why I feel so sad, but I feel like something just happened that it's going to change my life in a way that I'm not prepared for. She said, whatever it is, however your life changes, I'm there. I'm going to be there with you. You don't have to worry about that, because whatever it is, we're going to get through it together. The good way, the right way. She said, because we're good. And he looked at her. She was a little shorter than him, so he looked down at her. And he took his nose and he rubbed noses with her, you know, like the Eskimos, you know, used to do in the movies. I don't know if that's real or not, but I know in the movies they used to do that. And it was a sign of affection, you know. And she just laughed at him. And she said, come on, let's watch a movie and eat. And she had ordered some pizza. And so they sat there and they ate the pizza and they watched the movies and stuff like it. And then they called it a night. And he felt good. He felt good. But after she fell asleep, he lay there feeling restless, wondering how Jaylen felt. What was he going to do now? He felt guilty because he was the one that put Jaylen in the game, y'all. He didn't feel right about what had happened. He felt as though he had put this man on the wrong track, even though he was on the wrong track as well. And now that he was on the right track, he couldn't do anything to help Jaylen. Jaylen wouldn't listen. He didn't want to hear that penitentiary talk. He didn't want to be concerned with that. He was too far gone for that. So the next day, Orlando goes to work. And while he's at work, he's doing his thing and working and all this and that. And then when he was on his lunch break, at where he worked at the factory, they got picnic tables setting outside of the factory so the guys and the women there that work there, they can get some fresh air. So he was sitting out there, and he was sitting at one of the picnic tables with a few of his work partners, you know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden he hears this music. I'm talking about the bass is booming. Boom, 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 pulling up, right? And he looks over there, and it looks like Jaylen. So he whips that thing around so he could see his face. And when he looked at him, Jaylen was driving. And he was staring at him. And he just kept staring at Orlando. And then when he was sure that Orlando was looking back at him, he put his hands up like a gun. Right? You know how you got your two fingers and your thumb? And he pointed at Orlando. And he moved his thumb like he was cocking the pistol. And he moved his hand up like he was jerking it back, simulating firing the gun at Orlando. And then he pulled off slowly. He didn't speed off. He pulled off slowly, arrogantly, as if to say, you can't touch me. When I get ready to do what I want to do, it's nothing you can do about it. And fear, for the first time, washed all over Orlando. He didn't know what to think. He didn't know what to do. He was amazed that somebody that he called his brother would go this far. He had no idea why he felt this way. He had no idea why he wanted to hurt him. And he didn't know what to do about it. So he went back to work, finished up his job, and when he went home that afternoon, he told his girlfriend what had happened. And it terrified her. And she told him right then and there. She said, you need to call the police. You need to call the police. And Orlando said, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I'm not calling the police on my friend. And she told him why. She said, when he pointed his hand at you like a gun, he stopped being your friend. And Orlando told her, he said, no, he's just hurting. He's just mad at me right now. He's just mad. He'll get over it. Everything is going to be okay. But in his heart, he knew that what he was saying was just talk. He didn't know if it was going to be okay or not. He didn't know what he was going to do. He had no idea. He had no idea. So his girlfriend, she had a friend, a female friend that worked at the police department. So the next day at work, she called and she told her everything that Orlando had told her. And she said that I can't do anything unless he swears out a complaint. He has to do it, not you. But she told her friend, she said, look, I can have somebody stop by and just let him know that we're watching him. That might scare him off. You know, he's in the streets. Street people don't like the police coming around. So she said, yeah, do that. So she does it. She tells some of her male colleagues that on the police force that are patrol officers that what happened, and they were more than happy to stop by and have a talk with Jaylen. Now, you would think that that would be the right thing to do or the smart thing to do, at least if you don't want to press charges. You know what I'm saying? Just tell him, look, go your way, leave him alone, right? But see, when they did that, Jaylen's mind is so dark and polluted, he took that as a threat. You call the police on me? You know what kind of lifestyle I live and you call the police on me? You trying to get me busted. So now, Orlando goes from being somebody that don't want to be around his friend that thinks he's better than to now you the police. And see, what was happening, see, in Jaylen's mind, he was slowly going down that road that would allow him to do almost anything to neutralize this threat that really wasn't a threat. It was just that he was hurting. So he went and told the guy that put Orlando on what happened. He conveniently left out all the things that he had done. So this guy thinks that, hey, Orlando might be the police. They might have got to him in prison. Because see, sometimes some people come to prison and they survive the prison experience by being rats. And then when they get out, they keep doing that because it gives them a sense of self-worth. That's not the case here. That was not what was happening at all. At all. Jaylen was hurting. He was mad. He was upset that his best friend in life was rejecting him. And he wanted to do something about it. In his own twisted way, he felt that the more pressure he would apply, then maybe, just maybe, Orlando would come back to the game. So he pulls up on Orlando when he was at work a couple of days later. And he pulls him to the side. And initially when Orlando was walking over, he wanted to tell him that he apologized for what happened and all this and that, right? Because, he don't know that his girl had some police go by there. He don't know that. So when he pulled up on him, he was like, I'm going to see if I can talk to my friend, my brother. So when they get together, they go around the corner, they get around the building, Jaylen hits him, smacks him, and then immediately pulls out a pistol. He said, man, you gonna call the police on me? You trying to get me in trouble? You trying to get me arrested? Orlando looks up at him and he said, man, what are you talking about? And he's standing up and he's wiping the blood away from his lip. He said, man, what are you talking about? He said, man, police came to see me, man. And they told me to stay away from you, to go on with my life, that you were trying to do good. You didn't want to be around people like me. He said, again, you think you better than me, don't you? He said, you did this to me. You did this to me, and now you telling me that you don't want to be around me, and you calling the police on me? He said, I ought to shoot you right now. Ain't nothing nobody can do to help you. He said, the next time I see you, it's me and you, man. Jaylen walks off and gets in his car. Orlando gets all the way up and he looks at him and he's baffled. He doesn't understand what just happened. He don't know nothing about no police. He ain't called no police. He ain't said nothing to nobody other than his girlfriend. So when he gets home that night, he tells her what happened. And she starts to cry immediately because she was trying to help him. And she starts to tell him what she did and all of these other things. And Orlando gets upset. Not upset to the point to where he wanted to leave her or anything like that. He gets upset that all of this is happening. And she reads it wrong and she thinks that he's angry with her and he tries to reassure her that he's not, but she's feeling some kind of way, and she's feeling like she's done something wrong that could make their situation worse. And she says, I'm so sorry. And if you want to know how this story continues to unfold, please tune in to the next episode because it's going to get better. Trust me. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.